go. What are you waiting for? And
they're dead. Horrifying.
From their faces. You can see the tears in their eyes.
It's such a horrifying thing that you're sitting there with somebody and the next second they're dead.
They had to witness their loved one who only moments ago, they were clapping, they were cheering, they were full of joy. To have the life taken away as a family member, I can only imagine seeing that happen. As I have a daughter, I can only imagine the fear that was in their minds and in their eyes. You can just see the panic. That it's, we need.
A Marine according to the Marine Corps League of Pennsylvania, and 74-year-old James Copenhaver of Moon Township. Father and husband and Buffalo Township firefighter, 50-year-old Corey Comparator, was killed in the shooting.
my name is Dr. Jim Sweetland. I'm an emergency department physician. Unfortunately, I was at the Trump rally. I was a physician that was attending to the firefighter who had a fatal wound to his head, Corey Comparator.
My name is Rico Elmore. I was at the rally because I am the vice chairman of the Republican Party of Beaver County. I'm also a 15-year service member in the Air National Guard, and there that's where I learned, the trauma care. And I attended Corey Comparator in his moment of tragedy.
3 shots rang out. They were pops. I thought at first they were firecrackers. There was a 2 to 3 second pause, and then there was 4 more pops. It was at that point the crowd and myself realized this was gunfire. I heard a woman cry out. She cried out saying, "He's been shot, he's down." At that point, a voice came to me, and I thought many days about this voice, but for me, I think it was God telling me to do something. Everybody at that point was sheltering, and that's why I climbed over them to go down to Corey.
I turned around towards the direction of those shots and looked up into the stands and heard someone yelling for a medic. I grabbed my water bottle, I took my tie off, and I ran towards the area that Corey was in. I kept telling everybody to stay down, get down, stay down. I met with a phenomenal doctor who was already on the scene trying to help as best as he could.
It was obvious Corey had suffered a gunshot wound to his head. It was above his right ear.
There was blood. There was a lot of it, but there was also pieces of skull fragment. There was also pieces of brain matter and skin. We had to actually pick up Corey from the bleachers because as we found out, he was protecting and shielding his family, and he had been wedged between the bleachers. So we picked him up, turned him over. There was a towel that I had used to hold pressure on the wound because if we can hold pressure on it, we would slow down the bleeding process.
You're administering CPR. At what point do you realize it's futile?
In the field, you don't realize it's ever futile.
And there was a moment that I look at the doctor, he looks back at me, and we're just, without words, we look at each other and you know that we have to keep going. Regardless of the outcome, we have to keep going. And that's by the grace of God, we kept doing what we had to do.
I turned and looked around, and I assume it was his wife and one of his daughters and looking at me, and I realized I was performing CPR at their feet on Corey. I'll never forget the look on their face. I've had the privilege of attending to people when they've been dying in the emergency department. And the look on their face was that of horror, but it also was a little bit of hope. And the only thing I could say to him, I blurred out, he's going to get the help he needs.
The shock in the look in her eyes was just unimaginable. You can see in the eyes of the wife and the individuals that were around Corey that they were scared, they were panicked. You can see the color drain from their faces. You can see the tears in their eyes.
It's such a horrifying thing that you're sitting there with somebody and the next second they're dead.
They had to witness their loved one who only moments ago, they were clapping, they were cheering, they were full of joy. To have the life taken away as a family member, I can only imagine seeing that happen. As I have a daughter, I can only imagine the fear that was in their minds and in their eyes. You can just see the panic.
You ran over to him seconds after the shots were fired. It must have occurred to you. It was broken glass. That seems odd unless they knew something. Yeah.
With respect to former President Trump, there's some question about whether or not it's a bullet or shrapnel that that hit his ear.
Former President Donald Trump was not happy with that remark, posting on Truth Social, quote, "There was no glass, there was no shrapnel. The hospital called it a bullet wound to the ear, and that is what it was. No wonder the once storied FBI has lost the confidence of America."
The FBI has identified the suspected shooter as 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks. According to court records, he did not have a criminal history.
The FBI director revealing that the gunman had looked up how far Lee Harvey Oswald was from John F. Kennedy.
The shooter was searching for information on his devices on both President Biden and former President Trump.
Thomas was a quiet young man, typical teenager in high school, a very intelligent young man, a man who pretty much stayed to himself, a pretty typical teenage high school student.
And it's going to say GPIO dot falling, so they get a detected signal is decreasing.
My name is Jim Knapp. I was Thomas Crooks' guidance counselor from his sophomore year through his senior year.
Thomas Crooks.
He did have a few friends.